Hello everyone, welcome back to Sowkya Vision. Today we are going to discuss the cardiac cycle. So what is cardiac cycle? It is nothing but the sequence of changes that are occurred in the pressure and the blood flow. These are the sequence of changes that occur in the pressure and the blood flow during one heartbeat and another heartbeat. Yes, changes that occur in the pressure and blood flow between one heartbeat and the another heartbeat. That is called cardiac cycle. So, the cardiac cycle containing four main events, the systolic events and the diastolic events. Okay, the chambers involved are two atria and two ventricles, as we know. Yes, the heart containing four chambers, atria and two ventricles. Okay, now the cardiac cycle containing two separate functional syncytium. What are they? They are atrial syncytium and ventricular syncytium. Okay, atrial syncytium, again atrial systole and atrial diastole. Here ventricular systole and ventricular diastole. Okay, now let's see in the diagram. First of all, let's imagine these are the atria and these are the ventricles. Okay, during the cycle, in the beginning of the cycle, in the initial stage of the cycle, these are the atria, right? Okay, let's imagine the pressure in the atria is 0 in the beginning of the cycle. Okay, now from superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, due to venous return, the atria gets filled. We know this, the atria gets filled due to venous return, so that the pressure in the atria goes from 0 to, that increases up to 4 mm to 7 mm Hg of pressure, 7 mm pressure. Okay, so due to the venous return, the pressure in the atria goes from 0 and increases about 4 mm to Hg. Okay, now this is the pressure that is present in the atria. Okay, now the pressure in the atria is more, so that the volume that is in the atria is more, so that there will be passive filling of the ventricle. Here the ventricular pressure is less than atria. Okay, now due to more pressure, the atria ejects, the atria gives blood to the ventricle. Okay, the atria gives blood to the ventricle. But why? It is due to more pressure in the atria. Yes, it is due to more pressure in the atria. The blood from atria is passively coming to the ventricle. It is not active, it is passively. Here where we are having valves, right? These valves are open, kept open, so that the blood from atria is coming to ventricle. Okay, now the ventricular pressure is increased. Ventricular pressure is increased. Why? From atria, blood is coming to the ventricle, so that the ventricular pressure is increased. How? The passive filling, that is about 80 to 100 ml. The passive filling. Why the passive filling occurs? The passive filling occurs due to more pressure in the atria than compared to the ventricle. That is why the passive filling occurs. Okay, now ventricular pressure is increased, but we need more blood in the ventricle. Okay, that occurs by active filling. By active filling, we get 20 to 30 ml of blood. Okay, and this is due to passive filling. That is why that is due to increase in atrial pressure. Atrial pressure is more than ventricular pressure, so that the passive filling occurs, that to 80 to 100 ml. Okay, but that blood is not sufficient, so we need some more blood. Yes, we need some more blood to pump. That is by active filling. Yes, so active filling we get 20 to 30 ml. Now how much blood is there? Now we are having 100 to 120 ml of blood in the ventricle. Okay, now the ventricular pressure is increased. We know na? The ventricular pressure is increased. So if ventricular pressure is increased, there is chances of backflow, right? There is chances of backflow. So in order to prevent that backflow, these valves are closed. Atrioventricular valves are closed. Okay, when these are closed, we hear the heart sound 1. Yes, when these AV valves closed, we hear HS1, heart sound 1. Okay, now this is closed. Now what is the route to pass this blood? Ventricles are getting more blood. They need to eject blood outside. What is the channel? These AV valves are closed. So what are the channels to pass through? They are pulmonary artery and the aorta. Pulmonary artery and the aorta. The pulmonary artery and the aorta is having pulmonary artery and aorta is having less pressure when compared to ventricles. Ventricles is having more pressure, but to prevent backflow we already closed this AV valves, so that we got HS1. Okay, now what is the pathway to pass blood flow? We are having pulmonary atria and the aorta. Now the pulmonary atria and the aorta are having less blood pressure compared to the ventricle, so that the blood goes into the pulmonary artery and the aorta. Yes, pulmonary artery and aorta. Okay, now the pulmonary artery and the aorta are filling blood, so the ventricle is get contracted. Yes, the ventricle is getting contracted. Now the ventricular pressure is decreased. Ventricular pressure is decreased. Now in where the pressure is more, in the aorta and the pulmonary artery, right? In order to prevent the backflow into the ventricle, the semilunar valves are closed. What are the semilunar valves? Okay, the semilunar valves are closed. They are present between the ventricle and the pulmonary atria and the aorta. Semilunar valves, in order to prevent blood backflow into the ventricles, then we get HS2. Okay, HS2. Yes, this is the simple way of cardiac cycle. Now let's see in the description what happens actually. Okay, as I said, the cardiac cycle is a sequence of events that occur during the period between one heartbeat to the another heartbeat. Okay, so the duration of one cardiac cycle is about 0.8 seconds. 0.8 seconds. In the beginning, in the initial stage of the cardiac cycle, every chamber is in a diastolic stage. Every chamber is in a relaxed state. 4 chambers is there, right? So they are in relaxed state. Now, relaxed state, but they are filled with venous blood. Okay, I said the atria are filled with the venous blood. Now, so the increase in the atrial pressure, the atrioventricular valves are opened. Okay, so when the atrioventricular valves are opened, here these are opened, right? So the pressure, the blood flow from atria to ventricle, so the equal pressure will be maintained. Identical pressure will be maintained. Okay, so the atria and ventricular are continuity. There is no closing, no junction, no bridge, opening of valves. So the blood pressure, the blood volume is almost the same, and they are in continuity. Okay, they are in continuity. Now let's see in the flow chart. This is the flow chart you must write in the exam. So atrial contraction takes place. After that, isovolumetric ventricular contraction. See, there will be contraction is there, but there is no change in the blood volume. So isovolumetric means what? It is the same volume maintained in the ventricles, but contraction taking place. Yes, volume is not changing, but the contraction is same. Okay, volume is not changing, but contraction is taking place. Now, ventricular contraction proper. Here the volume will be changing. Here the volume is changed. Now, isovolumetric ventricular relaxation. Volume is same, but the ventricles are relaxed. Okay, volume is kept same, but the ventricles are relaxed. Now, initial rapid filling. There will be, in the starting stage, there will be rapid filling, means with heavy rate, like with a large rate of filling. In the slow ventricular filling phase, and again the next cycle is going to start. Okay, now stage 1 is atrial systole that takes place in 0.1 second of period of time. Okay, this is seen following impulse generated by the SA node. As we know, the SA node is a pacemaker of the heart, right? SA node is a pacemaker of the heart that is present near the right atrium. Yes, so this SA node gives impulse. The SA node gives impulse to the atria. Yes, so action potential is generated. The atrial systole, when we see the atrial systole, seen following impulse generated by the SA node. After the generation of the impulse by SA node, the atrial systole started. The atrial muscle is contracted. Systole means nothing but contraction, right? The atrial pressure rise followed by increase in ventricular pressure. See, okay, in the initial stage, the atria is having zero. Yes, zero pressure. So, due to the venous return, the atrial pressure is increased. After the atrial pressure is increased, due to the increased pressure, the ventriculars get filling. Yes, the ventricular get blood from the atria. So that after the pressure increased in the atria, that pressure is again following to the ventricles, right? So the after pressure rise in atria, that is increase in atrial pressure is followed by the ventricular pressure increasing. Okay, right atrial pressure rises to 4 to 6 mmHg, whereas left atrial pressure rises to 7 mmHg nearly. Okay, now already volume of blood is for okay in the ventricle due to increase in the as I said no, what I said now, in the initial stage there is 0 mmHg of pressure in the atria. Now that is increased to 4 mmHg. Yes, so 4 mmHg and 7 mmHg. So due to increase in pressure in the atria, there will be passive filling of the ventricle. There will be passive filling, that too very rapid. Yes, it is about 80 to 100 ml of the ventricular filling takes place, that too passively. After that, active filling about 20 to 30 ml takes place. Okay, see already the volume of blood is in the ventricle is 100 ml, that too passively. Now propels additional volume of 30 ml, that is active process. Okay, now each ventricle contains nearly 130 ml at the end of ventricular diastole. Yes, the diastole means what? Relaxation. The ventricle is relaxed due to its filling. Okay, so we will have 100 to 130 ml at the end of ventricular diastole. Okay, now ventricular systole, ventricular contraction, that takes place in two stages: isovolumetric ventricular contraction and ventricular systole proper. Systole means what again? Contraction, we know, right? So in isovolumetric ventricular contraction, there is same amount of blood, but there is contraction started. Contraction has started, but same volume is maintained. How? See, ventricular pressure is increased. Why? Due to passive filling and active filling from the atria. But ventricular effusion is not started. So, same volume is maintained, but the contraction has started. When the atria is entered in the systole, the ventricular systole has been started, but there is no there is no effusion of the blood into the pulmonary arteria and the aorta. Yes, pulmonary artery and aorta. So, the isovolumetric ventricular contraction takes place. Pressure in the atria and the ventricular falls. Yes, the pressure in the atria and the ventriculars are decreased. Now, the atrial contraction phases has been completed, we know. Yes, when the ventricular systole started, same time atrial contraction is stopped. Now, due to increase in ventricular pressure, there is chance of backflow. As I said, when the pressure is increased, there is chance of backflow, so that the AV valves are closed. As I said, no. So whenever there is increase in ventricular pressure, there is chance of backflow, which is prevented by AV valves. Producing what? Heart sound 1. See, the closure of the AV valves leads to production of H sound 1, heart sound 1. This is 1. Okay, and here no effusion of blood. Here no effusion. There is no flow of blood into the atria and any vessel, aorta, pulmonary artery. Okay, now ventricular systole proper. In the right ventricle and the left ventricle, the pressure is increased. Now, this is the atria. Okay, this is the pulmonary artery and this is the aorta. Okay, the ventricular pressure, the right ventricular pressure is more than pulmonary artery. Okay, the right ventricular pressure is more than pulmonary artery, whereas left ventricular pressure is more than aorta, greater than aorta. Yes, so there is chances of flowing of blood into these vessels from ventricles. Okay, right ventricle, left ventricle, the pressure is more than pulmonary artery, which is about 10 to 12 mmHg, more than 10 to 12. Normally pulmonary artery is having 10 to 12 mmHg. So the pressure in the right atrium is greater than 10 to 12 mmHg. Okay, so the opening of semilunar valves. Why? Due to increase in ventricular pressure, here valves, we are having valves, semilunar valves. These valves are opened so that the blood is effused. Okay, now opening of semilunar valves, ejection started. Initially very rapid ejection due to more pressure. In the summit, there will be very high. That is the peak. Now, final phase, there will be so slow ejection due to gradual decrease in the pressure in the ventricles. Okay. Now, how much blood is ejected by each ventricle in the each cardiac cycle? That is about 70 to 80 ml Hg. So, what is the remaining volume that is present in the each ventricle at the end of ventricular systole? That is about 30 ml. 30 ml is again present in the ventricle. Ventricles are never emptied. Okay. Now, the ventricular diastole. There again here we are having 4 stages. Protodiastole, isovolumetric relaxation, ventricular diastole proper, and last rapid filling. See, protodiastole. Here, okay, these are having less blood pressure compared to the ventricle, so that the blood is going up into the vessels. So, the pulmonary atria and aorta is increased in pressure, right? Pressure is increased. So, there is chances of going back of blood, right? Going backflow. So, that again the semilunar valves are closed in order to prevent backflow into the ventricles. Okay, here we get the heart sound too. Okay, here we get the second heart sound. Okay. Okay, that is called protodiastole phase. In that phase, we get the heart sound too. Now, the isovolumetric relaxation of the ventricles. Now, here the ventricles are relaxed. Yes, but the volume is same. The volume is same. There is no changes in the volume. Okay. Ventricular diastole proper. Yes, the ventricular diastole proper means what? Again, the atria is filled. Okay, with venous return. This venous return increased atrial pressure. That atrial pressure, due to increase in atrial pressure, there will be passive filling. As I said, there is a passive filling that is about 80 to 100 ml of blood. That is passive filling. That is proper ventricular diastole. Okay, that is proper ventricular diastole, and at the end there will be last rapid filling due to decrease in the pressure in the atria. Okay, there is increase in the pressure in the ventricle due to decrease in the pressure in the atria. And now last phase is what? Atrial diastole. Atrial diastole is means what? Atrial muscle relaxation, and then pressure gradually increase due to venous return. Okay, due to venous return, the pressure in the atria increases. Venous return drops to 0 mmHg with the opening of AV valves. Again, as the pressure is increased in the atria, the valves open, blood is coming into the ventricle. Again, it goes to 0. Okay, again the atrial pressure goes to 0. As this is cardiac cycle. Once again, I'll explain you. See, this is the atria and this is the ventricles. Okay, in the initially there will be atria containing 0 mmHg of pressure, 0 pressure. Due to venous return, the pressure is increased to 4 mmHg to 7 mmHg. Okay, 4 mmHg to 7 mmHg. Due to increase in the blood pressure, due to increase in the blood pressure in the atria, there will be passive filling of the ventricle. There will be passive filling of the ventricle. How much? That is about 70%. 70% is passively filled. Okay. Now, 70% is passively filled. And actively we will get 20% of blood. 20 to 30% of blood we will get into ventricles by active filling. So, now the pressure in the ventricles is more than the atria. Yes, now the pressure is very increased, right? So that there is chances of backflow. In order to prevent the backflow, there is closure of the AV valves, so that we get heart sound 1. Okay, again we are having 2 phases in the ventricular contraction. That is what? Isovolumetric ventricular contraction and ventricular contraction proper. In isovolumetric ventricular contraction, there is contraction of the ventricle takes place, but there is no changes in the volume. Okay. In ventricular contraction, there is contraction of the blood going into the pulmonary artery and the aorta. Here the pulmonary artery and aorta are having, pulmonary artery having about 10 mmHg of pressure. Yes, the aorta is also having some pressure. Now, the ventricle is having more pressure than the pulmonary aorta and the pulmonary artery and the aorta. Yes, due to the increase in pressure, the blood goes into aorta and the pulmonary artery. Yes, now the pulmonary artery and aorta get more pressure, increased pressure than the ventricle due to blood. So there is chances of backflow, right? So that the semilunar valves are closed. The semilunar valves are closed. There we get heart sound too. Yes, heart sound too we get. Now, in the relaxation period, here also we are having four phases of the relaxation period. First one is what? Protodiastole. In protodiastole, as I said, there is backflow, chances of backflow. Here, semilunar valves are closed, so that we get HS2, heart sound 2. And in the second phase of the relaxation, there is isovolumetric relaxation. Why? There is no changes, but there is relaxation of the ventricles takes place. There is no volume changes. Okay. Now, again, there will be filling, passive filling. Why? Due to atrial contraction. Atria gets contracted, so that the passive filling of the ventricles takes place about 70%. Okay, 70%. And finally, the slow filling phase takes place. Yes, this is complete cardiac cycle. If you have any doubt, please comment in the comment section. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Namaste.